That's good. I know a lot of y'all here want some information on what employers may be looking for when you go to graduate and try to get out on an important job. I don't want to belabor the point here because I know we're getting a little late start, but we want to get everybody in here before we got started. So what I want to do now is just kind of turn it over to these ladies up here. What they're going to do is tell you who they are, what company or organization they're with, give kind of a brief introduction, and I have a few questions we're going to ask to start with, and at the end we're going to open it up for questions for you guys. So if you have you can think of some questions. We're going to have maybe 20 minutes at the end to ask. So without any further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Sandra.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Sandra Kate Hendricks. I'm the Director of Human Resources for Meadows Regional Medical Center. We are a non-for-profit organization that's located and situated here in Vidalia. We have 33 site locations that range from Dublin, Georgia to Savannah, Georgia. We are very excited to be here and participating today. I came out of the Savannah market, actually worked in I had worked in manufacturing settings, also in banking settings and human resources, and joined the team at Meadows about 5 years ago.
Good afternoon, my name is Nancy Palmer. I'm with Chicken of the City and U.S. Pet Nutrition, a new company in town. We're about at 500 employees and hiring every day, so we're interested in hearing from you.
Hi, my name is Paige Carruthers. I'm with Select Source Staffing Agency. At the present time, we staff the Chicken of the City and U.S. Pet. We're a newly staffed company since August of last year, but we've been in business in other branches since about 1997. We look forward to seeing some of you come by. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies. Looks like we have a lot of Baptists in here because the back is full. So I do see some seats down front. If any of y'all standing up, I know there's some down front if y'all want to sit for a little bit. If each one of y'all would kind of take a turn answering this, kind of tell us what do you look for in an employee?
Well, at Meadows, we have a culture that we established about 4 years ago. It's a culture of accountability, quality, and customer service. So we look for an employee a passion for healthcare, whether or not you're working in the capacity of a clinical employee or if you're in a support role such as environmental services or dietary. We try to match that up. We love to see during the interviewing process that the individual shows a passion for wanting to be in a service role. It's rather hard to find people that love serving other people, and so servitude is part of that what we're looking for.
Ours is a little different. We have a manufacturing background, so we're looking for people that are willing to work, that have to be there on time, that want to be there every day, and we do have a variety of jobs, and with our expansion, we're getting more jobs. So there's a lot of different things going on, and a lot of that you'll see in the paper or you'll see through our temp agencies, which is one of the reasons I brought Paige with us today.
Okay, and I'm going to piggyback on Nancy. We pretty much employ at Chicken of the City and U.S. Pet in the warehouse and manufacturing and production-based environment. So that is the same area that we're looking to place people in the positions.
Okay, Ms. Palmer, when looking at a resume, what are you focused on, or what really needs to be on that resume?
Resumes are an introduction for you to a company, and you want it to be impressive. So one of the main things people look for first are numbers. So if you can put any types of numbers, I think it's a good thing to put in there. People scan resumes. If it's too many pages, they're not interested. You want something that'll pop on your resume so they'll look at it, see it, and stop. And also you want to follow up on your resume. You can do that either by an email, a phone call, or a letter, but let the company know that you're interested. Don't just stop with sending a resume.
And Ms. Hendricks, you want to
In the healthcare industry, we definitely love to see a resume accompanied with your application, although we do use an application software system, so you really cannot apply for a job and that is once you have a position open, and you have to go through that electronic submission. But we do encourage you to attach a resume because it is gives you an expansion of telling us more about yourself. We like to see it very cleanly written, clean fonts, no curly fonts or script fonts, because it really does need to reflect professionalism. So we also like to see your hobbies. We like to know what your interests are. So I think it's important to have that as well, especially if this is your first opportunity to work somewhere. Tell us about what you've done in high school, where you're looking to go in your resume. So we do look at them, but it's not an actual submission for application to Meadows.
Okay, and for us, we also use electronic application, so that is our first glance. And being in the temp agency, the main thing we look at is stabilization in your long term, your commitment, because in the temp agency, it is a big turnover. So we're looking to see how stable you're being in your past job, what type of experience going into a manufacturing position. And that's mainly what we look for.
Okay, and along those same lines, Ms. Hendricks, when looking over an application, what are you looking for and what are you focused on in the application?
We like to see job stability as far as the number of years of employment. If it is your first job, then of course you would say you were a student. But really, the first thing we look for is we want to match up with what the responsibilities are and the specific job functions of our task, whether or not you have anything that's relevant in your past. If you don't, we look at the education levels and what is required of the job description to make sure that it's a match for the position.
And Ms. Palmer?
I think it's very important when you fill out an application to be honest on your application and answer it in a way that you think will help you in the job that you're applying for. So make sure you put your skills and your credits for that type of job. Also, anything you've done in the community helps because it lets us know that you want to be a part of the community and we can see some of the other skill sets you have.
And mainly with us, again, we look for the stabilization, how much experience and with staffing. A lot of you are first-time employees, so we look at, the schooling, the dedication and how well you will be able to, support in that position itself.
And Ms. Carruthers, during interviews, what are some do's and don'ts that stick out in your mind that you've seen in the past?
I guess I would say my pet peeve right now is cell phones. We deal with a lot of young, inexperienced people coming in that's just starting and coming with your cell phone on or answering the phone during the interview and text and being attentive to what you're coming there for and not doing outside things. That's the main thing.
Ms. Palmer?
Anytime you go to apply for a job, you need to dress appropriately. Make sure that you wear something that looks professional because this is your first impression. And everybody knows you only have one chance to make a first impression, so make sure you do your best to make a first impression.
For Meadows, we like to see that you're on time. I like to give a recommendation that if you're applying for a position, always dress one level above that position. You want to show that you are on time, that you're dressed appropriately, and that you're ready to interview. Make sure that you actually Google or research through the search engine the company that you're going to interview for. It's always impressive whenever the interviewer says, tell me what you know about Meadows Regional. If you can say, well, I know that you were established in 1956. So that's a great way of segueing into having a good conversation with a recruiter. If you know a little bit more about the company than just saying, I don't know anything about you, actually, that's a little bit embarrassing for an applicant when they can't really come back with an answer to that question.
Okay. Here's a question that's been in the news lately. How big a part does social media play in the entire process, say, of an applicant's Facebook page?
Yes, it is important. We do have a media policy. It is important that any candidate for a position or final candidate for a position to be made an offer. If you identify yourself as a medical center employee, you have to follow our policy. We do look at that. We check references on the individuals, and of course you give us references, and of course we can do additional reference checks as well. We can also search on Facebook, search on LinkedIn, other professional electronic means to be able to search to see if someone has been unprofessional, use of profanity, improper grammar, slanderous comments, of course, would be something that would not be appropriate when you're applying for jobs. So make sure that you watch what you have on the page.
I would just remind you that anything you put out on the internet, everybody can see, and it will come back to either do good for you or bad for you. So you make sure you put things out there that you let your mama read.
As well, we have a media policy that we ask once you accepted the position to sign, and we have enforced it. And like I said, with being at Chicago City, you expect if you do not enforce it, it is a form of termination. So we're very serious about using media policy with that company.
Hey, do we have any questions from the audience? Has anyone thought of a question they want to ask our panel? All at one time, please.
question is, are we just employing registered nurses at the hospital? I probably should have elaborated a little bit more. We are up to about 805 employees. We have 33 site locations. Our company is not-for-profit, as I mentioned before, and we're designated into a couple of different corporations. Meadows Regional Medical Center, which is the hospital staff themselves, we are not hiring LPNs at this time. We are hiring registered nurses. But inside SRPCC, which is Southeast Regional Primary Care Corporation, which is our doctor's offices, we still continue to recruit and hire licensed practical nurses. So not in the hospital, but yes, inside the company itself.
Any more questions? Now's your time to ask.
Meadows Regional hiring medical assistants.
Yes, we do have medical assistant positions that we post. You have to go to the website. I will tell you that we have something called position control that takes place every Tuesday. It's a meeting that I run at 2:30 in the afternoon. And at that time, any requisitions for new positions or replacement positions come forward to me. We make a decision on which positions will be replaced, whether we approve new positions happens at that time. And then we post them internally for 3 days. You go to our website and see the new positions by Wednesday around lunchtime. They post for 3 days through Friday at lunchtime. At that time, the internal candidates have the option to post. And if the positions are not filled by internal candidates, then on Mondays, it'll be posted to the community for others to be able to apply for those jobs.
As far as social media is concerned, how often do you actually check someone's social media to find out if they're violating your social media policy? And if you do, what brings it about is because someone said so-and-so has whatever on their page, or do you just do it randomly, or what?
Well, it's kind of in the same sync with our random drug screens. We do random drug screens on a certain population of our employees. At the same time we do those drug screens, usually around the same week, we look to a certain percentage of population of the hospital. So now, with that being said, we also have confidential compliance lines. We have certain HIPAA policies that we have in place to protect our patients. If we ever get a complaint through compliance or by word of mouth through a director to HR, then we can go in and check at that time.
In answer to your question for us, once you sign the media policy, we only act as a complaint or something you violated another coworker, and then we have someone to do research. And then, again, according to what that complaint is, we will follow through then. If it's severe enough, that's being, we put on suspension, termination, or whatever from that point.
Okay, any other questions? Sure y'all have questions. Now's your time to ask.
I typically get a lot of questions about the application process at Meadows. Do you want me to elaborate on how that works?
Yes, that'd be good.
Okay. We tend to get a lot of phone calls and human resources, so I wanted to take this forum and opportunity to tell you so that you can go back and tell others who are applying in the healthcare industry. We use a system that's called Workday. If you've not applied for a position with Meadows, I do encourage you to, when you go through the process of applying, take your time. It takes about 45 minutes. And make sure that you answer the questions on the health behavioral assessment to the best of your ability. Health behavioral assessment is actually a pre-screening tool that we use. We've received 2,500 applications for approximately 150 jobs every year. If you get screened out under the HBA score and you score too low, then you would not be considered a candidate for 1 year until you reapply in 1 year. So it's very important to take your time, to not allow someone else to do your application. You do it yourself. Even if you're not really computer literate, make sure that they ask you the questions to be able to answer back and click for you. We have this, sometimes we'll have someone who fails the HBA score and then they come back and say, but I didn't do it, my son did it because I wasn't a computer literate person. So make sure that you're sitting there at the computer whenever they are doing the HBA to ask you those questions and that you can personally answer those. The question was, does the HBA, is it something that we use as part of our hiring process? Absolutely. The health behavioral assessment is actually broken into 4 components. It's got the organizational commitment, it has retention index, it has social intelligence, and then a performance index. Those 4 actually are scored based on about 50 questions that you answer. It's a pre-screening tool because we see so many applications that if you score low on that and someone else scores high, then that person would be a higher candidate to even be interviewed, and you may not be considered even for interview based on how you score. So it's very important. And it follows you. It's not every time when you apply, you can apply for 15 jobs, but that one application, you get the one opportunity to score on the HBA. It follows you for the year.
How many years of experience do you have to, let's just say I graduate next year, July, from my programs. How many years experience do I have to have in order to apply for a certain position?
Is that for Meadows?
We don't have to have years experience. The main thing we're looking for are people that are interested in working. You do need a background in whatever you're applying for. So whatever you decided to graduate with your degree, then it needs to go definitely for the job. But we like to look at a diverse group of people and experience it something we necessarily see.
For Meadows, it depends on the position. We do have certain set job descriptions that identify whether or not it's going to require education or experience or a combination of both. And so I think it would have to depend on that particular position. I know for a phlebotomist, you're graduating out of school with a phlebotomy certification, you have to have a minimum of 1 year experience to be able to apply for a job at Meadows.
And with select source, we don't look for experience as well, but we do look for someone in that position, that you're looking for a manufacturing production versus if someone come out of a food factory or something not related, that person will have an upper hand as far as being considered before for someone with no experience.
Then we had another question. They would like to ask Ms. Hendricks, how often do you check the applications online? Meadows?
Okay. Workday application software, as I mentioned before, is the only way to apply for jobs at Meadows. As I mentioned, we get 2,500 applications for 150 positions. About 2 years ago, we determined that we needed to have a full-time recruiter. So now we do have a full-time recruiter that looks at those every day. When the specifications are set up for a particular position, let's just use this example of phlebotomist. Not only is the recruiter seeing 100% of the applications that come in, but the director of the laboratory would also be receiving a copy of that resume. So 2 people are actually reviewing them on a daily basis. So every day they're being reviewed.
We also have a question. There's 4 of them today. Ms. Palmer, I have one that I've heard several students talk about previously. The makeup of the population of the workers at Chicken see how is it predominantly male, predominantly female? How does that work?
We actually have both. We have more men than we do women, but we have jobs for men and women. And most of the time, either sex can do most of our jobs.
All right, need some questions.
Is the work rate experience required to be a position with GNC?
Through our staffing company, the Georgia work rate is a requirement, and you have to pass all 3 parts, and it depends on what particular site you apply for. Chicken of the Sea requires a bronze, and USP requires a silver, and that is a criteria to, be eligible for a position with us.
We also support that program at Meadows Regional.
It's a good question. Any more? Okay, for each of the companies, what is your anticipated growth for the next few years?
We're all going around. We have a lot of growth going on. The hospital is growing, we're growing. Select Source, of course, we grow, they're growing. So right now, it's a good place to be in Toombs County because we actually have a lot of things happening, and I think that's a great thing for us.
For the hospital, we structural growth that we experienced in the last year. We moved to the Savannah market, moved into the Dublin market, probably grew by about 100 employees based on some mergers that we have. We do have some mergers that will be coming into play in the next 6 months. We'll probably grow another 100 employees based on those mergers. That being said, as things grow, we continue to add positions. So it really depends on which market it is. I can't say that all the growth will be here in Vidalia. We hope it will be, but we know that we are expanding into other areas where we will see some partnerships and mergers, which will allow us to grow as well.
Does your experience have anything to do with like your salary, or is it like all inmates get paid the same thing, or all phlebotomists get paid the same thing? I mean, how exactly is that?
Yes, we do have starting salaries for phlebotomists, and then if you have over 5 years of experience, then that will put you into a different category. You get the 25th percentile of our salary grade. So, but yes, we do have certain set rates that in the clinical setting that we can definitely say this is our starting rate, and then based on experience, you meet the requirement, and you can get a certain percentage higher.
What is the most ridiculous or crazy thing you've seen or heard during the interview process?
For me personally, I actually had a young lady that was interviewing with me, and she actually took a phone call from a family member, never said, excuse me, I've got to take this call. She just proceeded to have a conversation in front of me. And I really had a hard time actually getting back to the interview process because I was so shocked that she answered her phone. So that was probably the strangest thing that ever happened.
I would like to answer that. With mine, one of our criteria is a valid ID, maybe a driver's license or a state ID. And we tell them we do not accept the felonies. So when I asked the young man for his ID, he gave me an inmate release prison ID. Are you for real? That right there was scary. That actually happened twice, guys, and that's not a joke. It was for real. He was excused from the interview at that present time.
On that same note, why is it that y'all don't hire felons? I guess my reason for asking is, if they already went and done their time, the idea is rehabilitation is trying to build them back up to working and being a part of the community. But if nobody will have them, how they going to do it?
That criteria is from our corporate offices, nothing that was placed here local, and at the present time, we do not have a plan in place to adapt to felonies in a position at a time. But that is not something local, that is from our corporate office all the way around.
Okay, from Meadows' perspective, it's a little bit different in the healthcare industry. Plus, we are a drug-free workplace sponsored by the state of Georgia, and we actually made a commitment that we will not hire convicted felons. So that's part of it. We actually receive a discount on the backside of that for workers' comp-related insurance products that we purchase. So there's actually incentive from the state that they provide through that particular program. But on a deeper level, in healthcare, we are in a responsible, I'm almost like a fiduciary from a banking perspective to a client. We have certain ownership and responsibility to our patients and guests. I have to look at every arrest, whether it be shoplifting, whether it be DUIs, repetitive DUIs, theft by taking, whatever the case may be, might actually hinder an applicant from being the highest and best candidate. Because if I have someone that steals from a patient, and then we get sued as an organization, they're going to look back at me and say, you knew that she was had theft by taking 3 times in the last 5 years, why did you hire her? And then I would be in trouble with the state because I hired someone knowing that there's a possibility they might steal again and then ultimately affect one of our patients. new chief nursing officer who was installed 2 years ago. Based on the types of skill set that we're looking for and what she's looking for from her job descriptions in her particular areas, it was determined that we would keep the LPNs that we currently had. We were just not going to hire additional LPNs in the hospital setting. Now, with that being said, that's because of some of the requirements of each position and what it's required to do. The LPNs are not licensed to be able to do that. And so we want those individuals to be cross-trained, be able to move between departments. So it was her determination that we needed to stop with hiring LPNs in the hospital, but that does not mean that we don't hire them in other areas of our organization, just not in the physical hospital.
As far as having experience, kind of wondering how we would, like in the hospital setting, expect us to get experience. If we call on some people that don't have experience, we would rather.
The question was, how can you say that you have to have a minimum number of experience in years if people are just coming out of school? There are certain areas that you can go and volunteer in. Medical centers does not have a junior volunteers program, but we do encourage you to go and actually participate in that during your clinicals. You can also find other areas that you can volunteer in and or get experience from. And there are certain positions, it's not every position that requires that you have relevant experience. I use phlebotomy as an example because that particular director has that set in stone in his job descriptions. But as an employer, if we're going to have a patient that's going to need a phlebotomist to stick them, we want that person to know that they're confident in what they're doing, and so that director has said they have to have at least a minimum 1 year experience.
Does clinical count as an experience for nurses or any phlebotomists?
Very possibly, we have to look at the specific situation and look at the job description. It's always preferred, experience is always preferred.
Any more questions? Here's a question. Can a person have too much experience?
No, I don't think anybody can have too much experience. We value people that don't have a lot of experience and people that do have experience. That's part of what makes the culture work. So I would say that would be right.
If we could keep the conversations to a minimum while our panel's talking, please. Thank you.
Well, the question was, can too much experience be bad or hurt someone? I believe that as we grow and mature as adults, I think that sometimes we do acquire a lot of experience in certain areas, and we in our minds may believe that we need to be compensated differently for more experience. At Meadows, we pay for performance and we pay based on the responsibilities. So if you had a PhD and you applied for a receptionist role and you were answering telephones, we're not going to pay you for the education of a PhD that you have if it's not required by the job description. So I think there are some cases where someone may feel that their experience would make them need to be compensated at a higher level. And the only thing I can think of where it would be negative is if we had a position that didn't require the education or the experience, and we would be paid based on what that responsibility is for the essential job functions.
Going back to that question, but the way our economy is, if I have an LPN degree, but you have a secretary position open and I need a job, how come I can't just take that pay cut? To me, it's just, I need that job, but you're punishing me because I have a degree.
No, absolutely. We definitely consider people, as long as when you apply, you explain what you're seeking. We would definitely hire someone that is clinical in nature going into a clerical role. We wouldn't pay that individual at the LP level for the receptionist or administrative role. We pay based on what the essential responsibilities are, but we would definitely consider people. We do. We have very little turnover in our pharmacy techs, but we do. We have pharmacy techs. question is if she knows someone that's been in a different line of work for 27 years but would like to come and work at Meadows. Is there anything specific that she needs to have as far as experience? I would say, is it a relevant field? Is it working in an administrative role? Right. Yeah, just wants to do something different. We applaud that, and I tell you, one of the first things we look at when we look at an application is the job stability and the number of what we call kind of commitment to the industry. So we would probably look at her dates of hire and think, wow, 27 years, that's awesome. So I would say that just that on her application would be enough to probably warrant her an interview.
Would you consider hiring individuals with a disability in your, to our companies?
It depends, because in manufacturing, for example, you have to be able to perform certain tasks. So if individuals can perform the task, then that's fine. That is not a problem.
And I would piggyback on that because her criteria is offered to us, so whatever the criteria for that position, as long as they can fulfill that position, then we send them the applicant.
And that is absolutely, we will, we do, we have, as far as hiring people with disabilities. Typically, when we go through the application process, we know nothing about the individual. When we interview for the position, we let them read the job description, and we specifically ask, can you perform all the tasks that are on the job description with or without accommodation? With that question being asked, we're giving them the opportunity to disclose to us whether or not there is something that we need to be aware of. And then once they disclose that, the organization has the right to make the determination whether or not it is something we can accommodate. We have accommodated, we have continued to hire people that we were unsure and not sure if they would be able to perform, but we gave them the opportunity to do so, and they have.
How important is being bilingual in the interview process, and is that considered something that you would choose them over someone who isn't bilingual?
With our company being, having the bilingual would not matter as long as you perform that position. Again, whatever they ask for as criteria, that's what we fulfill, not necessarily the language.
We love it and we seek it at Meadows, so we think that's wonderful. And we try to have at least one bilingual individual that speaks Spanish, at least on site at all shifts. So I think it's very important to our success to make sure that we communicate properly, especially in the healthcare arena. It's very important. So we'd love to see that.
What is your policy on hiring older workers, specifically someone maybe your retirement age and that they don't intend to retire?
The jobs that we have in the manufacturing area require certain skill levels. If you can do those jobs, we have several people that are near retirement. If you can do them, that's fine. We have no problem with that.
On a regular basis, we hire individuals who are over the age of 55, and actually our chief nursing officer is 62. So I have people anywhere from 50 to 75 working for Meadows right now. So we do not discriminate against age.
Okay, going back to the word social media, I know this, the application process is a multi-part process, and the application resume involved in interview. Have you made a hiring decision solely based off someone's, maybe something they put on Facebook? I know that's a big thing. I know probably most everybody here has Facebook, and your students talking about it all the time. But would that be that sole factor? Would that make it a determination you hiring or not hiring that individual?
For our company, that is not a factor because mainly it's after they've been employed that we have issues and it's brought to our attention as a complaint, but it's not a pre-screening criteria that we look for before, going out looking into their Facebook page or anything like that.
For us, that's a difficult question because if I have Sally Sue and I have Joe, and they both look the same on paper, same number of experience, same amount of education, and Joe has something posted negatively on his Facebook and Sally Sue does not, then Sally Sue becomes the highest and best candidate. So I would say that yes, it can affect you, it can affect you.
It's probably, how do you view, piercing and tattoos? Sorry, your next question.
With select sources, following the policy with, chicken of the sea, placing them piercing, we do not screen tattoos as long as they're not a problem with the criteria that you're doing, but piercing is not allowed at all.
And that's part of the food safety.
Because at any time working in both companies, chicken or CDS pet, the piercing can fall out, if you're gonna be in danger and fall into the food that you can, so it's not allowed.
In the healthcare arena, we do have a very stringent policy about piercings and tattoos. To work at Meadows Regional Medical Center, you cannot have more than 2 piercings in either ear and no visible tattoos. So if Sally Sue has a tattoo on her hand and she's hired by Meadows, it has to be covered by a Band-Aid at all times when she's on shift. If you have one that's uncoverable, then it's very possible you not be the highest and best candidate for the position.
Hey, I have a question. If you look at, Facebook, German, who can hire I believe that everybody on Facebook or anybody who works, like they're working, they have a life outside of work. So why do you look at Facebook? I mean, I know it kind of represents who we are, but at the same time, we're being ourselves.
But to answer that again with our company, we do not follow Facebook as a prerequisite. During the process of interview, we do sign a media policy, and then once a complaint is brought to us that some exchange was done on Facebook, like to violate someone else's rights or disrespecting another person, and it's brought to a public notice, at that point, we will look at it and then look and say, okay, you signed this agreement, and then we go from there. But we do not go on there to search for, Facebook issues, just pre-screen whether you get the job or not.
That's a very difficult question. The First Amendment rights come into play whenever you start talking about your personal opinions about various things. Our policy is written in agreement with the Georgia state law and federal law, which basically says that we cannot do anything or govern any employee unless they identify themselves as Meadows Regional Medical Center employees on their Facebook. So they sign a policy coming in to work at Meadows, and then at that point, they identify themselves as Meadows Regional Medical Center employees, and we have the right to screen and to discipline if there is something that is harassing in nature, inappropriate, from our policy standpoint. I use that example of Joe and Sally Sue just to show you that there are so many different fine lines of what could be considered to make somebody else hire a better candidate than you. We do not screen everybody for Facebook. That doesn't mean we can't do it. That just means that it's not necessarily a pre-screening tool we use of choice. But we could, and so you need to make sure that you use professionalism in your, of course, your presentation on Facebook to make sure that you would be the highest and best candidate for any organization.
And we got time for maybe one more question.
Will you screen on Facebook? Will you do it, like on Friday, when you got hired, you'll go back? Like say I got hired today, you'll go back and look at like who will go to Facebook? Actually,
Not necessarily. We could, but not necessarily. We have to be friends with you to be able to see back that far, I believe. So depends on how you're open, on how you have your settings and things like that on Facebook.
Okay. All right, let's give our panel a round of applause. And we do have pizza for you guys. Go ahead and continue to fill out your surveys. You can turn them in as you leave.